2 Cents Sports Show.
Yo, it's Mr. House.
It's your boy C Woods. I knew we was
girl, Cheeks. Do it again, Cheeks.
No.
And this is our 2 Cents. What's up, y'all?
Man, that was gangster right there. What's up, House? Cheeks.
What's up, y'all?
Once again, we running it back with our brother, friend of the show, Mr. JOSHI. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I like the setup here. This setup is dope, by the way. Congratulations to all you guys, not all you three. You guys have put in a lot of work, a lot of episodes, and this is just fruits of your labor, and just keep it going, because who knows what's to come.
Appreciate you, man. This is all brother Nate over there, man. Shout out to Nate.
Thank you, Nate.
Playmaker.
Shout out to Playmaker. Everybody good?
Yep.
All right, let's get rolling. So, Jay, we had you on before, man. It was about a year ago. Was it a year? Maybe a little longer. It was when you had just started Flex.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get you back on, man, so we could talk about your journey from beginning to end, and kind of talk about the landscape of college sports these days, acquiring players, things like that, acquiring clients, and just get your view. So we're gonna start off. We're gonna let you tell us your story, and then we're gonna hit you with some questions.
Yeah, a lot of pressure here for this story. So it's a quick one. All right, it's gonna be one chapter. No, but it was good. I got my background. My background's in economics and communications, so I got that from my undergrad. I got my master's in sports management from University of San Francisco. So then I went and did a whole bunch of internships, like you got to do in various careers, and that's how it goes in sports. And luckily, kind of things fell my way. Good timing, some good luck, all that came together, and got opportunities at some notable agencies with very notable agents, got to learn under them, and that was more than a blessing because it gave me a real hands-on first-person view of how the day-to-day really goes, and how what you see on HBO's Ballers is completely incorrect because it's a lot more boring than what you see. It's not Miami palm trees all day, but outside of that, it kind of really put things in perspective and allowed me to see that this really is a passion of mine, and it's been great. And so then I launched Flex right around 2020, right around the pandemic starting. So that was just timing is my strong suit, and it's been good. It's been good. Got 3 practices going. Have partners on both the team sports side, so football, basketball, and then I also have a golf practice. So that's been going well.
So one of the first, and I don't know if you were interning at the time or if you were actually working with the agency, but one of your most notable clients that I've seen was Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Can you talk about that experience with us? Yeah,
that was cool. It was an awesome experience. Once again, it was a blessing because I found myself in that role. It was pretty high role within that agency, and got to work under Jerry Maguire, the person who the movie was based on. So that was a dream come true. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So Lee Steinberg is his name, and the movie was based on him. He was essentially the pioneer of the business. There'll be few who came around that time, maybe a little bit after, but he was the guy. So he was a technical advisor on that. But anyways, it was my dream to kind of intern and learn from him, and I got to do just that. And then it wasn't an internship, it was a full-on job, and that kind of came about 6 years, 7 years after I had started really trying, sending emails, inquiring, showing up to his office with my resume in a suit, like ready to work that day. Like, that didn't work, but then one day just something happened, again, timing, I guess, and I ended up with a job. I just skipped the whole internship part, which is, again, a blessing, and it was amazing. So then I got to work with Patrick because they had just signed Patrick, and he's awesome to work with. He's super easygoing, really nice guy, and I think you can see that in his personality. But the work that takes place behind there is just a lot of, phone calls and stuff. But it's made it a little easier when you're the number 10 overall pick with the arm that can throw out of the arena. So,
right.
But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of good experiences. Got to meet a lot of cool people, a lot of influential people, and you never want to be the smartest person in the room. So that was always a benefit, not being one of the least smartest people in that room. I'm like, all right, cool, you're doing something right. So it was great. It was great. It was fun.
There's something that you said, and I wanted you to repeat it. You said that you used to write letters every day. Not
every day. I won't like overblow it, but it was definitely, it was definitely a lot more than I can say. Probably in the top 99 percentile of people who write letters asking for jobs, because I really wanted it and I knew kind of what it would take, and if that meant I didn't get a paycheck but I got the experience, that was worth more than the dollar bill to me. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? And I also had a family who was supporting morally and a lot of times financially in those moments, and so a lot of people don't have that, and again, that's a blessing that I'm so grateful to have. And so everything came together and it was allowing me to pursue this career. So it was great, but yeah, it took a lot of persistence for sure.
That's true passion right there, right?
For sure. Yeah, and that's with any job, right? It's with any job, but and it doesn't change. It's to get a job here, but then now to get a client, and then to get your client the deal, and then to get your client the biggest deal. It's a never-ending process, and in the great words of Kobe Bryant, it's all about the process, and so.
Yeah, Lee Steinberg.
Yeah.
A lot of baseball players. He had represented a lot of baseball players that I knew. I used to play baseball, and I remember that name was just big. It was the name, and you're right, Jerry Maguire that's his story.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I remember you told me you were working with him. I'm like, oh man, you hit the jackpot.
Yeah,
but really that's that process of you showing up ready to work and people shooting you down and saying no. That's one of my issues, is I hate rejection. So the fact that you continue to say, you know what, I'm gonna keep going, and then that spot landed for you. It was just, I think, you put it out there and it happened for you, man. So congrats to that experience.
No, thank you. Yeah, man, I mean, no one likes rejection, right? Like, I hate it too. I'm just a super jovial dude, so I try to turn rejection into a joke, and then it's just a little easier to fall back on, but outside of that, yeah, of course, it's like that, man. It's just life, and you mature and you go through it, and whatever career path you choose, you go through that process. This is just how it went for me.
Yep.
So.
Is it possible you could talk to us about your process as it goes to acquiring clients, and then from the time you acquire them to potentially getting them signed or whatever, like just a step-by-step of how that goes?
Yeah, so, well, were you talking about how did it go 2 years ago, or how does it go today? Because it's just changed. It just changed. But I'll just give you the whole bare basic, is that traditionally you would have started, so for basketball players, right, they're not growing, they usually start dunking probably around 8th grade or 9th grade if they're really athletic, 8th grade maybe, if they're really athletic earlier, but you grow into your body around 9th grade, and you start that whole process. You can kind of get a glimpse of what this kid's gonna be. Or in football, you won't really know until past high school into college, because they're still growing. And so that's kind of keeping that barometer there, like you can kind of understand what the recruiting process is like. And say for basketball, you'd probably start in high school, which seems early, but back in the day when kids could go skip the college process altogether, that was not early. I mean, starting in 9th, 10th grade for a super athletic kid wasn't early at all, but now you have it where they have to go for 1 year, and so you kind of move the scale up maybe a year, just to kind of give yourself some time, because there's always those kids that just blossom in their junior year, and then you're like, wow, and he's really a sleeper, and if you develop a great relationship with them, that might be your kid. But so that's kind of where that goes. But then now with this whole NIL thing going on, kids can really profit off their name and likeness and image real quickly, and soon in their basketball careers. So now people are getting representation when they're freshmen in high school and sophomores in high school, and that by no means means, and it's in the rules, that you can't promise representation as a professional after that, or ensure that, okay, now you're representing me, here it goes. But you can imagine, you build up a 4-year relationship, you bring in deals, that's more than likely what's going to happen. And even worse, if you're in the agent's perspective, you work for 4 years like that and you end up not signing him. I mean, that is the biggest, oh man, dagger to the chest. And I know that's happened recently. Not to me, I mean, but oof, that's rough. And so it's tough, but the timeline is kind of as such. And with golfers, it's just like, you wouldn't even think, but golfers is so early. I mean, golfers, it's really funny how football, basketball have been getting scrutinized for getting free stuff, those athletes, where golfers, there's a bunch of like 7-year-olds getting clubs from TaylorMade every day. They're like, oh, I need a new wedge. Okay, TaylorMade just overnighted, or Callaway, I'm not saying just TaylorMade, like all the big brands do it, and if there's really someone they see some potential in, shout out to my niece, Genevieve McHenry, so if any of the big brands are listening, hit me up. Yeah, you know, kids are really getting swooped early by these brands, and then come with the relationships with the agents, and you know, that's where you have to start playing. And I'm no different. You know, I have to start earlier and earlier, where traditionally I would have started in college. So that's kind of how it goes. It's different sport to sport, as you can see, but it's just kind of understanding when the kids start developing, and whenever you think that is, that's the best time to start. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
then the process from, let's say, from becoming an amateur to now getting into professional sports. I know you said you're doing basketball, you're doing football. What's the process of helping a kid get signed?
Oh yeah.
To a team.
Or signed or like drafted?
All of that.
Okay, yeah. So usually you'll go after March Madness. You'll declare for the draft. For basketball, football, you'll declare after the Rose Bowl or national championship game. So from that time, the clock starts ticking until draft day, and that's when you start training. But it is a misnomer, and a lot of parents kind of get too caught up in this that, oh, I need to get the best training, the best training. Like, your kid's not going to turn from Kwame Brown to Michael Jordan just because he went to the best trainer over a 3-month span. Like, that doesn't happen. It's just to fine tune the things here that we think need a little bit of work before you put on your exhibition for the NBA draft combine, which just happened actually in Chicago.
Right.
So, so essentially that's kind of the process there, with helping them understand the training process, and then maybe getting them a nutritionist. And the thing is, it's a constantly evolving process, and so whatever this agent's offering, if they're offering this +1, now this is the standard. That's the standard. If you're offering anything less than that, you're not good enough. And so you'll see a whole lot of things with the whole NFT fad coming on now, and a lot of agencies are producing NFTs for their clients. And not to give out any ideas, but I mean, if you've heard of it for the first time right now, you're already behind. So it's just, but you got to constantly, it's a constant evolving landscape, and just you got to be about your wits. So it's really easy to get caught up in sports, but then you kind of have to look at the broader picture of just the world and where you can apply all that into sports, and vice versa. So,
talk about the transition from how it used to be until now, NIL, and how that's affected your ability to recruit people and things as such.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's predominantly just how early you can get the relationship started, and if that starts with your first deal with a shoe deal, and you get that early for someone, I mean, you put yourself head and shoulders above any other competition out there, and whether they say it or not in writing or in verbally, like, you know that's the case, and now everyone else is fighting an uphill battle. But the business is so fickle that, you know, things can always change, and so NIL has now just added another variable into the whole equation, and it's made it even harder from a human perspective to just kind of keep things business and not take things personally. That's a really tough thing to get past, and like, we talk about mental health all the time, and it's very important, and especially, I mean, no one gives a rat's ass about agents, and I mean, I'm trying to like not be that asshole, you know, who's like, all right, please don't. Like, I'm trying to be genuine, I'm trying to be transparent, and I do that, and I'm very ethical. I kind of hang my hat on the fact that I am very ethical, which does put me behind the 8 ball, because I'm not willing to write that check to someone. Even if I had the means to get the check, I'm not giving you a check, because that's not the way it works. There's a process to it, and we'll get you the money. And you'll earn it, and you'll get it the way you should, and in due time. But, you know, trying to get people to understand that, and again, with this at such a young age, and now at a younger age, because they're getting thrown money earlier, is tough. So the process, and one thing I didn't mention about the process earlier, is that the parents are very involved, and they should be. They should be, and I'm not against it at all. But it's just, you gotta now you have to balance the motives of the parents. And if they have their head on their shoulders, then you just won the jackpot as far as trying to just build a relationship, because that's what it's about. It's a relationship building thing. If it doesn't work out the first time, there's so much turnover. Keep that relationship going. It may work in your favor down the line. But then you deal with parents who may have their own motives and their own intentions, and they feel what they are owed, which, hey man, parents put in a lot of work. Parents put a lot of hours. Parents put a lot of dollars. So no denying what they're owed. But when they verbalize it, when that becomes a point of emphasis, it gets a little tough. So a lot of agents balance that well, but I mean, they probably have the pocketbooks to balance that well. You know, it's easier just to shut people up for the time being with this, and that's not how you build a relationship. So I'm in the relationship building business. I like to do that, and I have great relationships with everyone in sports, and it's a very small business, which, you know, we've touched on the whole Saban talking about people. I'm like, dude, also, you don't want to do that. It's a small business. Like, everyone knows everyone, like y'all touched on. So, you know, it's good. Overall, the business is good. I have a passion for it, but the process hasn't really. The process has just gotten a little earlier. That's really the change.
Cheeks.
What sport is the hardest for you to get somebody?
Yeah, so
I'll probably say football, but probably not.
Yeah, so statistically, I would have to say basketball, just because of the sheer number. There's 60 players compared to the 210 players in football who are drafted every year. But I mean, it's getting more and more. Yeah, I would say basketball is the toughest. Yeah, and I mean, again, it's so easy to get enamored by the boys over at Clutch. They do good work, but again, like, you know, I don't like to put different agencies' names out there, because there's a lot of big ones. Even there's an agency bigger than Clutch that no one really talks about, but they're the #1 agency and no one really knows. And so I'm not going to say them, because I'm not here to shoot at agencies. But that's the thing, is like, it's tough to try to have them understand. You want someone who has the time for you. When you have the biggest player, biggest athlete on the planet calling your phone, and you call at the same time, no one's answering your phone, man. Like, sorry, you ain't getting that answer. So if they want to see that kind of response, by all means. But if they want to say, hey, I'm a part of this agency, by all means, you know, like, more power to them. More power to them. It's just about trying to make kids understand the bigger scope. And I feel like that's why golf is a little bit easier in that respect, because from an earlier age, I feel like they understand. But again, I think it's just a whole thing about inequality, you know, like socioeconomic inequality, because there are resources that they have on that end that a lot of kids don't have on this end in football and basketball. So I think that's what contributes to it. And you can see the development of the kids because of those barriers that some kids have to face. So you have to keep that in mind, but that's where you kind of see the personality differences and how really hard it is to recruit or sign a player. Yeah.
You look like you had something to say.
Yeah, I was wanted to touch on that part. You talking about parents having their own motives, because I take it back to He Got Game.
Oh yeah.
When Jesus Shuttlesworth's uncle was driving that, was it Lexus?
Lexus.
Yeah.
He was like, I ain't take like, you know,
yeah.
and I can totally see that.
Oh, yeah.
We all want our kids to get an academic scholarship or an athletic scholarship. Because most of us are still paying our loans back, right? So, how do you think, and it's probably hard for you to explain, but I could totally see some agents or agencies saying, yeah, you know, I'll do that. You know what I mean? Instead of the kid saying, you know what? Yeah, that Big Blue agency is good and they got everybody, but I kind of want that intimate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want that relationship where if I have to get that deal, I need it. Like I think about like Paige Buchers with the Stock X. That's dope. I think that was dope. You know, she gets all the kicks. The team gets all the kicks. What do you think could combat an agent from digging into his own pocket or the agency's pocket and writing a check? Because that could turn back to Reggie Bush. That could turn back to, you know, into a situation like,
Let me put my school on blast.
put Reggie on blast. But listen, we love Reggie, but he should have got an NIL deal back in the day.
Yeah.
So how do you think like agents, sports agents are gonna combat that and say, you know, I really want your son or your daughter, but I can't really do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I don't like we said, not to bring Mr. Alabama up again, but like the biggest colleges, they do it. The biggest agencies, they do it. So you got to find your own moral code, really, because let it be no misnomer. Like, I have access to investors myself. I could find the 7-figure check for that player if I had to. But we try to get him to understand that, okay, there's ways to get that. You can do the whole, advance thing, the marketing advance and stuff. Once you come up with an agreement where both sides it's kosher, everything's good moving forward, then that's the kind of way you can go about that. You want your money a little earlier, we can arrange that. But bribing people into signing or working with people, it's just going to be an everlasting problem, unfortunately. It's just going to forever be there. I won't ever subscribe to it, and I've already been asked for it this year alone. They're like, so if you do this, and I'm like, man, come on, dude. Like, and the reason is because, like, two things. Even if I wanted to do it, right? I gave someone the money. Then they come back and say, okay, well, either one, they can run with it and sign with someone else. Or two, I bitch and moan about it, and I'm screwed anyway. And they're in the same position because once they're out of school, they can care less. They took the money, so what? Now they're a pro and they're gonna sign with whoever they want. So the only person who loses in here is me as the agent. And so there's nothing to gain from it and everything to lose. And if you come to the point where, $500,000, or, I mean, for the Cade Cunninghams and stuff of the world, the #1 picks, those are big checks you may have to write. You may, allegedly. But if you're ready to write $1 million check and you're willing to lose it, that may be, but then there's safeguards you can put, legal safeguards for those kind of things. And so you just gotta be willing to sacrifice your moral ethics, which some call it hustling. I mean, I hustle. I don't
Honest
do that,
hustle, though.
Yeah.
Honest hustle.
I mean, it kind of is the Jerry Maguire story, right? I mean, less clients, more intimate perspective, and doing things the right way versus, getting involved with the intangibles of the business.
Absolutely.
Do you find that hinders you from getting, all the players that you'd like to represent?
100%, it does. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world as a 31-year-old guy who's kind of matured, especially, I mean, you think you know everything as a 25-year-old kid, and then you're like, Dad, I didn't know anything as a 25-year-old. And I probably don't know anything today looking 5 years in the future, but what I know today and what I know these kids don't know at 20 or at 19, 12, 20, 10 years younger than me, it's like, and then they make some of the decisions. My thing is, you don't have to choose me as an agent. That's fine. Or anybody as an agent specifically. But you never know what you don't know. So, as my parents would always say, give it an opportunity, go and sit in the meeting with whomever you need to. These kids are sitting down with the big agencies in one meeting saying, okay, fine, done. Because that's the first thing they saw. And that is so very immature. And it works like that with anything in life. You wouldn't go and sit down by the first car you see. You wouldn't go and sit by the first house you see. Unless it's, someone's giving it to you, then sure. But like, outside of that, you take time to research. That's a mature thing to do. And everyone has impulse buys. I buy things impulsively, shoes. But that's not gonna be my life-changing decision. Choosing an agent can be a life-changing decision. And if you're hiring someone for your career, they have to really think you're hiring someone for your life, because if he's really an agent who's there until your last playing days, that's not the agent for you. Like, Rob Pelinka was with Kobe long after Kobe was done, and then he kind of handed the torch off when he became Lakers GM and this and that. But the thing is, like, you have to be a life agent and kind of guide the person through their life. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not a good agent. And it's unfortunate that these kids will find that out 5-7 years down the road. And it's kind of a little too late, because not that maybe they expended all their talent, but the right relationships weren't built using the right motives and the right intentions. And so that's the struggle.
I think you brought up an important point right there, is the mentorship aspect of these kids, right? Because, at the end of the day, these kids are, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And most of them have their parents, or they may not, or whatever, but an agent is also that helpful guide to help them make decisions, especially financially, or in terms of making those decisions that they need to make. Talk about the mentoring aspect of that and the relationship that you have to build in order to even become a mentor, right?
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's really cool because like, and I think it's cool because I was never a big sibling to anybody. I have an older sister, but I never had a younger sibling, and so I thought it would always be cool, you know, to have that younger sibling to kind of like beat up on, but teach and coach, and like that's kind of why I became an agent, because I tutored kids who were always 2 or 3 years younger than me all the way through grade school. I was always helping younger kids, and it was just that's my passion. And so being able to be an agent to a young athlete and kind of guide them is some of the coolest things, or one of the coolest things to see is just them become a young man. Because I always joke with people when I'm getting to know them and stuff, is like, I want it to be so chill between you and me that you call me up and be like, yo Jay, does this match? Does this top and bottom match? Like right. Something completely not business worthy.
Right.
That's when I know that, all right, this is it, right? And that's what you want, that's a relationship you want with your agent. And so that's my pitch to anybody, is that like, and granted, like you can be best friends with someone, but if they don't have the time for you, they don't have the time for you, and that's okay. If they have their own priorities, fine. But my thing is I'll always have the time, and we'll be great friends, we'll be best friends, we'll be brothers, or we'll be sisters. I have a female client, we're like brother and sister, like, oh, brother and sister, I said sisters, we'll be brother and sister. Like she's on the LPGA Epson Tour golf, and I've known her for 5-7 years, but she started her pro playing career 3 years ago, and she's done great. She just finished, you know, top 15 in this last tournament she's played in Florida. But her and my bond is like this, because, you know, like anything she needs, and it's not even, it's not money driven, it's not business driven, it's not transactional at all. And that's my goal, is awesome. to make the representation aspect non-transactional.
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, I want you to let us know what advice you would give a new agent, and then also what advice you would give to an upcoming high school prospect looking to get out and sign with agents and things like that. What advice would you give to those two people?
Yeah, so to the young, or to the agent or aspiring agent, I think we touched on it, but you just have to be persistent. You got to show everyone that you want it more than everyone else. And doing that is not necessarily just working hard, but it's also just being present, being there, because everyone's going to leave, and it's a war of attrition. The longer you stick it out, the less competition, because you're just going to keep getting closer and closer to that top, or what you consider as the top, and then there's that much more to go. So your goal, it's like another rap line, but your goal is you always want your idols to kind of be your rivals. That should be your goal. If you're not in this it's like a sport. It's like being competitive. If you're scared about going against those people, then you probably shouldn't be in it. It should worry you to the point that it lights a fire under your ass. If it doesn't do that, it may not be the right career path for you. But if this is something you want to pursue, do it, because you won't regret it. And some of the fun things you get to do are always fun, like the perks of the job and getting to go to cool events and stuff. But beyond that, the kind of thrill that you get for helping someone else and seeing that help a greater population because of their platform, that is why I do it. And if you can kind of get gratitude and gratification from that, then it's a beautiful thing, man. So I enjoy that. So that's for the young agent. And then for the young athlete, I would say just look at all your options. Keep your options open until you have to make a decision. It's funny that some of the top players will look at 1 or 2 agencies and choose that, but they didn't do that with their colleges. They also always had their own, oh, this is my top 50.
5 visits.
No, yeah, this is my top 50. Like they have like 50 logos down their edited thing. And I'm like, there's a reason you went to, you got offers from this and you listed them as potentials, and then you had your 10 official visits and then this and that. But you are looking at all your options. So when you're looking at agents, see who honestly has the time, because when it comes time to the tournaments and the big bowl games, every agent's gonna be there because all the big teams and schools are there. Who's coming to the games when no one's out there, when you're the one school that's out there against these nobodies and doing whatever? I mean, that's what you have to use to discern who's there for you and who's just conveniently, oh, I'll be there, hold on, I'm just talking to someone else. And so who has the time? And you'll learn that as you grow up, but you know, that's kind of where you would start.
So for the young athlete, look at all your options.
Oh yeah, of course.
Don't look at don't limit it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of sexy options, but you want to find a lifer, okay?
Right.
The Instagram models are great, you know, but I mean, you may want to find a lifer who's just as good as Instagram model. You just haven't seen her with all those filters on, you know? It's different. So that's my perspective.
Yeah. You guys got anything else?
Nah.
Well, that was dope, man. A lot of information. I think a lot of people will benefit from this conversation. Cheeks, I'm almost scared to ask you this, but do you have a shout out?
One shout out? No, I don't have one.
Okay.
I'm so nervous.
I ain't saying.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so nervous.
Woods, you got a shout out?
Just shout out to Jay and Flex Sports. I'm pretty
Thank
sure
you,
we can get that handle down there at Flex Sports.
With the bouncing
Appreciate it, yeah.
The
Yep.
bouncing ball like Shaq.
JOSHI
Atul
Sports is
Kubi.
my handle.
There it is.
Thank you, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
definitely shout you out, brother. Thank you for taking the time. I know you had to drive and it's
No,
probably
you
traffic.
got- you got-
Appreciate you. As
man.
always, I got to shout out Playmaker.
Let's go.
Playmakers in the
Let's
building.
go. Playmaker live, baby.
Appreciate y'all, my brothers. And that's a wrap, man. I'm House, Woods, Cheeks, Brother Jay. And we out, y'all.